Can we have more Uru panels in the future?
Absolutely. This should kick in any sec.
Ooh, there we are.
Yep, I see it up on Twitch.
Here we go. Hi, everybody.
Hey.
It's me again. I know the rest of the audience is sick of seeing me. But yes, I'm Capella and I'm our host again. And everybody here would like to introduce themselves. You are Uru fan developers, and we are here to talk about the really cool shit being added to Uru.
I'll start. I'm Patrick Dulabon, aka Dubes. I've developed a few Ages for Myst Online Uru Live again, and am continuing to help people get their content in, and also helping people learn the plugin Cormon for that purpose.
Okay, I guess I'll go next. I'm Adam Johnson. I think you all know who I am. I am the author of that plugin, Cormon. Been working on this game for half my life. Been a lot of fun and really looking forward to talking to everybody.
Guess I'll go. I'm Paul Richards, Rarefied. I am a member of the Open Uru team that got involved when when Myst Online was open sourced. And I have been kind of shepherding stuff into the funnel that into the actual Myst Online server.
My name is John Johns. You know me in Cavernous Martin. And I'm also I'm trying to fit into the gap between the Uru group and the Open Uru group to assist with moving things into that funnel that Paul was talking about.
Hi, I'm Daryl. Most people in the Uru community probably know me as Paradox. I've been working on Uru-related tools since about 2004 and helping out with adding things to the Uru Plasma fork. My main focus is on trying to get the game running on Mac and Linux.
Fantastic.
I'm Tweak. Yeah, I've been building Ages for a while now. Yeah, that's kind of it, really.
That's a bit of an understatement there, Keith.
Yeah. Yeah, I got into Age building and all that lot back when Uru Live closed back in 2004. Then we started, there was the COBS forum and started like tinkering with the files and messing stuff around, SDL values and whatnot. But then when the tools got released for actually Age building, we dove into that. Yeah, just that's it really.
Yep. And I'm Mark DeForest. You know me as Chogun. So I've been at Cyan since 1995, early 95. So I've been there a long time, wore a lot of different hats. And got the vision from Rand of what Myst Online was supposed to be. Even back in 95, he talked about wanting to have a multiplayer game. And it's like, the dream has almost been there, but not quite. But I think with these fans, I think it can start to be realized.
And I recognize you. When I hear Chogun, I always think of how you used to rescue Cyan Chat.
Oh, yes. And I am the author of Cyan Chat.
And you would restart the server when we were all like, it's broken.
It's broken, yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was our first multiplayer game, yeah.
And let's not forget currently the man that bridges what we do with MOULa so that we can actually get our stuff in there. And of course, lets us play around on the Cyan staging server so we can figure out, make sure everything works properly. So very, very important.
You were responsible for getting our shirts in this year.
Well, yeah,
partially.
Almost everybody here was responsible.
We appreciate all of you for that. Like, I think it's been really fun to have a Mysterium this integrated with Uru. I hope some of you have seen what we were doing with the marker missions in addition to having the shirt. Kelly took point on that and did absolutely fantastic. And we know that it's been through the efforts of y'all and the broader development community. And we appreciate you so much for that.
Yeah, well, Kelly came to us. She said, you know, we'd like to do this for Mysterium this year. And of course, our wonderful team of programmers and artists gathered together and just made it happen. And really, shirts are, I think, probably one of the easier things to do. And I say that lightly. I don't say that lightly. It's not easy, but compared to putting a full age in and, you know, testing an age with all the puzzles and bells and whistles and everything, it's relatively easier.
Yeah, you say that now, and you saw how many times I managed to goof it up.
Hey, that's why we test these things. Yeah, we
Yeah,
got
the
Minkata.
icons messed up. Oh, Kelly, I need you to move the logo over 5 pixels to the right.
This is why we test, and it is very important.
So that's a really good question, because I think a number of people in the audience are doing the whole, well, fan content is coming into Uru. How is it getting there? What's the pipeline? So if y'all want to either talk about it generally or maybe talk about it specifically in the context of, oh, well, we added, you know, new hub, we added the fan age hubs. You know, do you want to talk a bit about that pipelining?
Well, I think it's really, from my end at least, it's you basically do your own testing on your own end. We have a wonderful testing shard called Destiny Shard, which was built by a couple of explorers, MOULa and Christopher. They built us a test shard, which could basically take local files that you produce yourself on your end. You could test them in a MOULa-ish environment, and then you could take them. And how it's been happening is we do a pull request on GitHub, and Paul is tuned into that. He will take that pull request and then start putting that on Mynkata. And then we test it from there in the 2 iterations of Mynkata to really put it through its paces. And then after that, once everything has been just torn up and down and repasted and redone and refreshed, we send it over to Mark, and he puts it on staging server, which is basically just a final check to make sure that it can survive on MOULa and not crash the whole thing. So, and then after that, it's out to the world.
Yeah.
So basically, it moves through a number of mid-stage servers.
Yeah,
for the
we don't
testing.
really have a pipeline per se. It's been mostly, I mean, I'm sure at Cyan there was an actual pipeline with, you know, various things that where, you know, we're doing this, and this. It's more loose and fluid with our system. It's basically if somebody comes to the group and says, you know, I have this, can we try this? And you know, we have this fix or this new age, they can bring it to us, and we can basically take it and try to, you know, make it work, and also see if it doesn't, you know, look a little bit better in, you know, and try to make it look better, basically make it up to the Cyan standards that have been set, and then take it from there and, you know, basically make it, you know.
And you might point out really that there isn't a formal us either. It is so loose that people that are on the Open Uru Discord in some of the general channels or the development channels can throw out that, gee, I have had time to work on something I think is an age that's worth playing around with, and they get comments back that says, okay, where are you? Are you at, you know, just a sketching point? Have you already built this and want to expose it to other people? And that kind of goes off to, okay, Patrick will say, okay, you know, if you need help with actual modeling and transforming it into the format that is needed for MOULa, then he can help there. Once it gets to a point where it's in a form that can be actually utilized by MOULa, I get involved and say, okay, we'll allocate kind of a time window where we'll put your age on the most unstable of the Mynkata worlds and announce it to the informal test group. There isn't a formal organization at all around this. It's all kind of coordinated through the Discord chat group.
Yeah, and they basically just go in and they dive in and try to find all the little odd nooks and crannies and the things that are broken. And they say, well, we'll take this and we'll see if we can't make it better.
Right. And it also depends on volunteers. We have a half dozen unusually dedicated people that as soon as something new comes up, they're willing to jump in and go through almost all of Uru again to try to find, corners that aren't rendered right, or getting off an elevator and walking into a wall. And it just astounds me that they can keep doing this over and over again. Mm-hmm. And, at the All Guilds meeting, I constantly am putting out calls saying, we always can use some more test people, because there's just too much for a small number of people to try to keep up with.
Right.
And God bless those people, because I think it was Bill in the last panel who was saying it's so much easier in single player. And just to give you an example of that, what he means is we've been testing an age on Minkata, and someone posted in the Discord this morning. I don't remember who it was, but briefly it said, well, when I link out and link back in, some of the puzzles have reset, but not all of them. So you have to ask yourself, well, if I go and push this button, what happens when somebody else links in after I've pushed that button? Will they see the same thing I've seen?
Yeah.
What happens if I push the button and immediately quit the game? Yeah. What will the rest of the people in the age see? Well, there's a lot of things to test.
Once you get a report like that, we have to figure out who can actually do something about it. Does it go to Adam? Does it go back to Patrick? Does it go back to the author of the age? Does it go back to me?
Yeah, it basically depends on if it's a server or a client thing or a age thing, or basically that kind of thing. But as Adam said, they are very, very important people, and we do appreciate the heck out of it, because they are the ones that can spot the things. I mean, we've looked at this stuff for, over and over and over for days, months, sometimes years, and they come in and they are able to pick out the spots that we may have missed in the millions of times we've seen this stuff. So really, it is
fresh eyes.
Exactly. I mean, the more fresh eyes on this stuff, the better. So they are incredibly helpful for making this stuff even better than it was before. I mean, I can personally attest to that with my work. So I appreciate the heck out of them.
So on that note, question: who has created something that's now on the live server, and what did you make?
I did. I think, mine is obviously Chisoprenev, which is the current outlet for all the other fan ages, basically the gateway for all the upcoming fan stuff, for the fan ages for now. Vile Savan, the Memorial Age, that's very personal project, very deep meaning in that one. Definitely, and that one also dedicated to a dear friend, I think, to many of us here, Terry Richardson, aka Tylar. She that was kind of a part of her idea of basically expanding that, and then also the Gomi Pub, the new Gomi Pub, the more, I don't know, I guess you could say larger, more colorful one. So that's what I've contributed so far. Although I am also without getting into too much detail, I am helping somebody with their age currently. So not my work, but helping them get theirs ready for prime time.
Now you've kind of not mentioned the fact that since Uru was actually released, fans have been wanting to create ages. Mm-hmm. And since open source happened, the promise got closer and closer, and we had a wave of fan developed ages that never were able to make it into a path to MOULa. Mm. And so they kind of languished, and we've had people that have dropped out of the Uru community. We've had people that have even passed away. And Patrick has gone back and looked at some of these early art pieces and take it on himself to actually bring them into the modern pipeline and set them up to move to MOULa. Mm. And that fascinates me too, because I have no idea how much stuff out there kind of went into the twilight zone because we weren't ready for it, but it's still there.
Wow.
There was a flurry of age building during the offline time frame, kind of when COBs and all that. A lot of people are around, a lot of people building ages, and there's quite a large catalogue out there of ages at different stages of completion and polish and whatnot. So there's quite a lot. If we can get in touch with past authors and whatnot, there's a lot that we could probably pull out and have a look at and see about getting onto the live servers. Like Patrick did with Serene. Yeah.
Well, Serene was a different case because unfortunately the original builder of the age, Andy Legate, passed away in January 2020. So that was more, and Mark actually has the age on his background, which is just lovely. But no, that one was more, Andy was one of the more visible age builders back in that era when they were first starting out. Because you got to remember, when people were first starting out with building these ages, it technically was not recognized by Cyan officially. And that's understandable because it is their property. But I will counterpoint to that and say that Cyan, especially these last year or so, has been very gracious in allowing us to fiddle with their content, so to speak, and to basically take the MOULa content and work it to our advantage. That's how we were able to get the Chiso book into the Watchers Pub. And most recently with the Intangibles content that was just released publicly. I mean, again, they have been very generous with lately just giving out their stuff. So, but back then, the plugin for that was basically, as far as I understand it, was based on a bunch of hacks and just basically their best guesses. I mean, they were really great guesses because, so basically it was mostly done for the version of Uru that's offline. So that'd be your Path of the Shell Complete Chronicles version. So that's why, right. But MOULa is a bit of a different monster. So that means that it has to be taken in and then converted and then exported to something a little bit more native to it. And that's what had to be done with Voltho Gallery and Serene and Trebivdil, is because, I mean, these ages were actually on Genshard first. So they had been tried and tested, but they still needed to be, converted to something that could be possibly used in MOULa. And since the Corman method of exportation has proven effective with my ages, I figured that's when we take those in and we try to put those out. And then basically just converting those into something that can work in Corman. We export it natively, it goes on to Minkata, and now they're all up on MOULa. So
now, Mark, I seem to recall hearing several times that there was a plan to actually accommodate fan content into Uru, even when Cyan still was holding the reins. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always been sort of there, but it really wasn't until after Game Tap. Then, I mean, we had the vision, at least me and Rand had the vision of maybe having some of the front end services out into the shards, like the game server and that, and then we would hold the auth server and all the backend stuff. That way you could have all shards, but there'd just be one login that one person would have that could go to all of them. But that didn't make it, so.
Well, to be fair, it was a bit of a tumultuous time at that time, right? So.
Yeah, for Cyan, it was very.
Yeah, exactly. So understandable, but here we are now, so. But yeah.
Yeah, what I'm amazed at is the new tools that you guys have come up with. Adam has been working on, and how that's. Maybe Adam, you want to talk a little about that?
Well, I think to start off with, we have to go back to our friend PYPRP. I was not really an author of that. That started off over at the Alcugs project, and I don't know who said this, but it was more like age programming than age building. So you would open the old version of Blender, 2.40 something, and this was back when Blender was just god awful. And if you wanted to put lighting in the age, like you wanted to make some areas darker and some areas brighter, you literally had to go in and manually color that part of the geometry. It was not for the faint of heart. And if you see older fan ages from 2006, 7, 8, and you're like, man, this is ugly, give them a break, please. They were doing the best they could. And if you wanted to animate an object and have it move in the game, there was this button in the interface you had to click called Actor. And if you did not click Actor, the game would blow. Dubes knows what I'm talking about because he's laughing. You know what I'm talking about. So I said, we can't do this. We can't do this at all. So the goal was to make it, I'm not going to say as easy as possible, but as user friendly as possible. And I think what's amusing is I started on Cormon like right after open source. And I wasn't necessarily looking at the Max plugin the whole time, but a lot of the stuff I did looks kind of like the Max plugin. Sometimes that's on purpose, sometimes not so much. But now you want an area to be lit, you put a light in there and Cormon bakes it for you. So that's a lot like Cyan's tool. So it's kind of an easy use thing.
It sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, PYPRP for its time was decent. And Keith, you still use it, right? So yes. So it does its job. And, with a little work, we could take that stuff and put it through Cormon, but it's just because there is methods of taking a PYPRP age and then Cormonifying it, I guess you could say. But yeah, Adam, I remember you started giving me builds of Cormon, what was it, like 2015? And then
I started working on it in 2012, but I didn't work very hard.
But we really started the testing process. I mean, I'm like your big beta tester here. So I think we started the process like 2015, right?
Yeah, that's when I really started pushing hard to get something done.
Yeah, and basically, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I think we got the first version released in a few months after we first started really pushing on it. Because I mean, I started in 12, but that was just kind of like, okay, we got to do something. Didn't really want to do it, but started, and then we got serious about it. Mm-hmm. But to go back to the point, look, Keith still uses PYPRP, and if you have not seen his ages, they look phenomenal.
Oh, yes.
Trey Bivdil, done in PYPRP, looks great. Mm-hmm. And did we have another one on Genshar from PYPRP? Volthal was in Max.
Well,
in your house.
Oh, Fenir's house. Yeah.
Yes.
That was in PYPRP as well. So it can do great things. It's just not easy to do great things in it. And we can bring those things into MOULa, but it's a very tricky process. And Deledrius is the one who did all that work.
I don't mind it for building. It's the more technical side of stuff that's a nuisance. Having to outscript everything, whereas the node-based system of Cormon is so much nicer. I have actually started moving over to Cormon now, but yeah, I find my build process is so much quicker in the old one, so it's easier for me to build up, move it over, and then go from there.
Yeah, for those that don't know, alt script is essentially what it sounds. It's a big list of scripting agents that the PYPRP plugin uses. And literally, if you make one small mistake on this thing, you have to go through literally hundreds and hundreds of lines of code to figure out where exactly something went wrong and what indent is wrong.
It requires a blood sacrifice to get it working.
Yes, yes. But no, what Cormon does is it uses the node system of Blender so that instead of having to go through all those lines of code, you just basically connect various nodes together into a tree. And then that tree is much easier to go over than does thousands of lines of code, basically. So it's an improvement in that regard too.
Well,
shameless. If you know Unreal blueprints, shameless. Who stole? I'm a thief. I'm a thief in the night.
Hey, whatever works.
I think the message here is that the idea is to make the process of getting something that you could sketch on some paper into a model that could be used in the game so much easier than doing mathematics to figure out geometric points and programming in arcane languages. It modernizes the whole pipeline, if you want to call it a pipeline, of going from idea to something you can see.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
And it's not easy too, because Blender is, I mean, we use it because it's free and anybody can get it. But at the same time, it is, and I'm sure every programmer here would agree, it is an unruly little, you know, and it can be sometimes. I mean, especially when they upgraded to 2.8. I mean, I know there's going to be some, maybe talk about that, but that's going to be fun if we ever get to upgrading to that.
Cyan had used 3ds Max, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the plugin's been released, but there are challenges still to even just using that instead of Cormon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what would be nice, and I've thought about this and looked at it in my copious free time, would be something that either a pair of plugins on 3ds Max and Corman that would actually pipeline the model between the two modeling systems, rather than have to export it in PRP and then lose some things coming back into Blender. And I'd love to try to finish some of those ideas and see if it would work.
Well, yeah, it's possible.
Well, the thing
everything's possible.
Yes.
We got some of the Cyan unreleased content with the intangibles, and that's still all in 3ds Max. And you're, as I understand it, still having to do a fair amount of handwork to retexture, relight things.
Yeah, and some of those intangibles are actually in 3ds Max 4 and maybe even 3.5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
that-
some of it even references the old Plasma 1 plugins that don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And so even if, you know, you can go in there and hit Plasma export and you'll get nothing because it's hooked up with the old plugins.
Right.
Well, that's
That
what you
was
got to remember.
actually
It's what was it? I'm sorry.
Something I was going to ask was, we got a couple questions in chat specifically about in 2014, I think it was, at Cyan, we heard a bit about the Intangibles project and we saw some of the concept art, which then again got broader released earlier this year. So what's, you know, the question kind of, what was going on with that? What's the difference between, you know, 2014 it was hinted at and now it's publicly out there? What work's been going on with that? Have any of you
So,
been using those?
back in 2014, there was a group of us that was kind of established for the Intangibles project, and we had some of the builders, some of the developers working on different bits and bobs. So yeah, I think initially the idea was they gave us the stuff and they were like, well, you know, use it. Not necessarily for finishing the ages that they were working on, but use it for, you know, building something new. And then, of course, a bunch of us being the way we are, kind of went, you know what, Rebec's here, I'm going to finish building this and, you know, let's have a look at color, see if we can get that working. So we focused more on actually kind of finishing it. I know we kind of, each of us kind of picked a project and started working on that. Rebecca was kind of my focus. I've done quite a lot of work on that. It's still a lot to do because a lot of the modeling was still kind of massing style and needed fine tuning. So I went in, I rebuilt all the cliffs, rebuilt all the lava tubes, all the tunnels, this, that, and the other. There's a location in Denis next to Kadish's gallery that ties into it. So we've been working, or was working on that as well. Of course, unfortunately, the way that Canyon's modeled, the shop for Rebecca doesn't sit properly with the Kadish gallery. They overlap, so there's some geometry magic to kind of redo there before you know, we get it to the cavern.
We're doing resolve, nothing clipping.
Sorry?
You just need to resolve it so nothing is clipping.
Yeah, because I think part of the Kadish gallery actually sticks out through the wall, but because of viz regions, it doesn't show up or something like that. I kind of overlaid everything just to kind of map out where it was supposed to go a few years back and kind of worked what the issues were. When the release happened recently, it was kind of pretty much everything that was released then was what was released to us back in 2014.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was kind of Grey Dragon Ryan kind of told me when the intangibles stuff was ending, and I was like, well, you know, happy to send whatever we've built over if you want to use it, which doesn't matter because it was all released anyway. So yeah, I think some of us have started kind of picking up the old projects again. I know I've started tinkering with Rebecca again recently, but it's not coming anytime soon because, yeah, I've got other ages I want to prioritize over it. Yeah, don't know if that answers the question.
No, it does. It does. We haven't heard much from Paradox and Martin, so would you two both like to talk a bit about some of your projects?
Sure. So I've been helping out with the Haru client, and I can give a quick rundown of some of the improvements that we've made there. And those are what feeds into the funnel that Martin's working on to eventually make it onto the MOULa client. So one of the big accomplishments is that as of April of this year, the Haru version of the Plasma engine is now 64-bit compatible. And as a side effect of that, we can now make 64-bit builds of the 3D Studio Max plugin, which means we have versions of the plugin that work all the way from Max 7 all the way up to Max 2022.
That's quite a version range.
Yeah. There's still a bit of work to figure out how to deploy that 64-bit client out from the game server without it conflicting with the 32-bit client. As I mentioned, I've been working on OpenGL rendering pipeline. I started that in 2014 with the hope of getting Uru to run natively on Mac and Linux. There's a lot left to do there, but the proof of concept is working well. I have a demo video that I can share in the chat afterwards.
Fantastic. We'd love that.
And then, yeah, especially with—
Can I jump in for a minute?
Sure.
I want to make sure that you're emphasizing something. Paradox doesn't mean it's working under Wine, it's working under Crossover, or any of those hacks. It means it's running natively on Linux, it's running natively on Mac. And maybe I didn't react this way in IRC, but when I saw it, my jaw kind of dropped like, it's actually happening. Let me check the floor, see if it's still warm down there.
But I was still blue.
Impressed.
I mean, I've still got the old the old bottle from the Game Tap release that you can shove the new DLLs in to run it on the Mac, and that's a absolute mess. So I am delighted that you're working on this.
Yeah, and one of the problems with the current wrappers for Mac is that Mac now requires everything to be 64-bit, and that's posed an issue for running 32-bit client. So we have it building in 64. It does run natively on Mac with OpenGL. And actually in December of last year, we had some help from a Mac developer who got it running on the brand new M1 ARM-based hardware as well.
Really? That's fantastic news. That's absolutely spectacular.
Yeah,
as I said, there's a lot of work to do, so I'm not going to promise any sort of release date for anything, but work is happening behind the scenes there.
Yeah, we got to emphasize, getting native clients for Mac and Linux. I mean, that is a big goal, but of course, it's going to take a lot of work from our programmer friends here to make that happen. And really, just temper your expectations. I mean, remember, we do this all in our free time. So, but once we have breakthroughs like this, I mean, we'll get it right out to you as soon as we can.
Yeah. Martin, do you want to talk a bit about your part?
Sure. I'm really just trying to step in and volunteer where I can. I don't have the skill set that Patrick has in age building or the coding skill set that Adam has in terms of working on the client. I can't stress enough how much of the improvements to Huru, which are now feeding into Myst Online, they come from a variety of contributors, but so much of it has come from Adam. I mean, just I pick something up and I'm like, it's got Adam's name all over it. Last year, I saw an opening talking to Paul about the pipeline into Myst Online. I saw that some things were starting to change. Some gears were starting to turn after having been kind of rusted in place for a long time. And I just wanted to step in and start helping to move things forward. What I'm doing is nothing particularly special. If there are others who have moderate coding capability, you don't have to be as deeply versed in C++ as the developers who are putting new features into the client. If you have the ability to port code from one version of a client to another version of client, you can help with the effort. The long-term plan is to bring the Myst Online, again, client much closer to what Huru is today. That doesn't mean that every single feature that's in Huru will come over, but the closer we can get them, then the easier it gets to actually bring in new features as we go along. So that's my role in this project.
Fantastic. So
Martin, I just want to mention, Martin, I would argue that your position is probably one of the most important ones, because we have these two big cults of personality, the Huru team and the Open Uru team, and bringing them together is, I'd say, one of the most important things that needs to be done. And that's probably one of the big reasons why we've had so much movement on this, is because we've had people like yourself who are bridging that gap between the work that's been done on Huru and bringing it to Open Uru so it can be put onto MOULa. So, don't sell yourself short. I mean, again, we've had other liaisons and they have been ever so helpful in just getting all this stuff started to push. And it's just good to see that it's starting to make its way on there. And that's because of people like yourself. So again, I reiterate, important.
And Martin, for those who aren't testing, could you name off maybe the two biggest, in your opinion, things that you have ported over that are on testing right now on Myncata, but are not currently on MOULa?
Oh, sure. So people know that we recently ported over widescreen, and that was a big change. What we are working on now is we're working on performance improvements to the client. That includes trying to fix glitches with what's called subworlds, a number of places where if you get onto an elevator, Myst Online will technically move you into something called a subworld. And it's kind of like it's moving you, but it's moving the world around you type thing.
Nice.
And those are very finicky. And a variety of developers are working to either replace subworlds with just normal in-game physics instead, or we're at least trying to fix up the subworld to be less finicky. So that's coming. The removal of the 30 frames per second cap is the other big one, I think, so that your game will be capable of rendering at a frame rate as fast as your computer and your monitor together can support. There's been a 30 frames per second cap since the game tap era. The original Complete Chronicles ran much faster, but when Cyan transitioned from the Havoc physics engine to the physics engine, they had some challenges and they threw in this 30 frames per second cap to kind of temporarily work around the problem, but it didn't stay temporary. It was a permanent fix.
I
the
did
Huru
not
folks,
know that.
Yeah, the Huru team had a fix for this almost a decade ago, and we're just now bringing it over to the Myst Online client, and that's in testing as well.
Okay.
It was spectacular enough that people that tested it for the first time said that they had to reorient themselves again because the movements were either so smooth or even a little bit dizzying, and it's made it much more realistic.
Yeah, so get ready for even more silky smooth MOULa.
All righty. Well, another question that we've been getting is, someone said thank you to Chogon for being so gracious with your time in bridging things to Cyan for us.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chogon has been a huge part of this. And again, literally, we would not have any of this on MOULa right now if it weren't for him. So again, thanks from me as well.
Yeah, this has been really fun for me. And I know sometimes I have to say, oh, I have to stop working on MOULa and start working on, real projects, but it is a real fun thing. And I enjoy all the fan input. I mean, it's really great.
One of the other questions, I don't know if any of y'all watched the panel just before this one where we were talking with people on the Uru team who had done development of the original game, but there were a number of questions about Descent in the Journey to Dunny, which are being repeated here. Are there any plans for y'all to be building that, or any of you working on something like that?
Maybe.
Someone
I
was
think
going
we
to
just
ask
had
that,
about
if you know it.
600 messages worth of that in Open Uru Discord a week ago.
Okay.
All I can
I'm
say
going
is
to point out that a lot of people watching right now likely aren't even familiar with the project and like the varying projects and what is the difference between things like Uru or Open Uru, or so I think for every person who's heard that discourse, there's a couple people going, I just know that New Age just showed up the other day. How's this work?
well, Uru is based off of mostly the Guild of Writers and programmers associated with them. Open Uru is Cyan's preferred pipeline method, and they are the ones that we funnel things through them, and they give it to Chogon, and Chogon puts it on the staging server, and then eventually to MOULa. So, but they're all in the business of improving and adding on to MOULa, to Uru. So in their own ways.
Improvements like the widescreen, like the frame rate.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, you have all these groups, but we're all trying to connect in order to make the core game that we love even better than it is before, well, through new content and through improved client function and all that stuff. So yeah, so I mean, you have all these different groups, but we're all working towards the same purpose, I think you could safely say. So
I think a little elaboration. We started fairly far apart because Open Uru was a fairly close contact with Cyan when Cyan decided to open source Uru, and the Guild of Writers wanted to hit the ground running. And it was very difficult to bridge between people that felt unencumbered and wanted to do things as fast as they could, and feeding things back to a already existing world. And so there was a wide schism at that time. Over time, as Cyan's priorities have changed, both sides have been able to get much closer together, and our goals are fairly well aligned right now. And we've worked out a path. The Guild of Writers Uru side did take off running. They made an awful lot of improvements right out of the gate that just couldn't quite make it to the pipeline yet. And we're catching up with what the Guild of Writers did years ago. But, it's still a measured process, but yes, we're getting there.
And that's why you've got the liaison working
Right.
from Martin, from some of...
No, I'd say
Yep.
go-between is probably a better name for it in the
Yeah,
history of the
liaison
word
gives-
liaison.
Liaison is a loaded term.
But no, it's definitely important that we have these folks that can mediate.
Yeah, because on one end of the spectrum, you've got me, Paradox, Deledrio, Zerax, and all of us Uru guys. I mean, we've been hacking Uru. we've been hacking the game since,
With love.
they've been doing it since like 2003. I didn't join in
Yeah.
until 2005. So, I mean, we all know each other. We know what we find important. And so we're like, okay, we don't care about Windows XP anymore. Who cares about, 32-bit? Everybody's on 64-bit now. So we're like, okay, throw that mess away. But that can sometimes be a little incompatible with what everybody else thinks.
Cool.
Right. I mean, there's some significant challenges in just getting agreement on what's going to go into Myst Online. So everybody's got their ideas, but is it right for the main shard? I mean, so there's a lot of content that's on different fan shards, whether it's being worked on Destiny or City of Dimensions, or if I pronounce that right, and then Organ. Not all of that may make its way into Myst Online. It may not fit the vision. We're talking to we've been talking to Alumnat in terms of what should be canon, what should fit into the world. And then even just technical issues like Adam mentioned, when is the right time to sunset support for XP in order to bring over features like Unicode support so that you have accented characters in chat in Myst Online? We're going to have to, in order to embrace the community that wants that, we may have to let go of the community that's still running on Windows XP. So how do we make that transition? Because we hate to leave anybody out, but there's also, there's serious technology challenges. We can't do both.
It's 2021. At what point do you make these calls? I understand. I work in healthcare IT. I know a concerning number of health support machines that still run on Windows XP and can't be deprecated because of older tools, and they have to be horribly rolled off from the network because there's a level of shock in realizing that there are MRI machines still on Windows 2000.
Yeah, well, it's not anything malicious. It's mostly just because there's security concerns too. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So,
do you call it, well, Windows XP support's been dead for years? Do you call it, do you say it's like 3 years after last support? Totally.
And it's tough because Windows 7 is out of support now. It went out of support last year.
Windows
so what do you
10's
do
gonna be
about
out of
that?
support at some
But you
point here.
definitely can XP and say that Windows 7 support is X years past Microsoft or whatever.
Well,
I
and
can see why that's a number of conversations to be having in the back end.
Right.
yeah,
Now, one thing we don't want to do is we don't just want to say next update, XP users are dead in the water.
Yes.
No.
That I think what we want to do is that needs to be a planned and communicated change. So we're going to have to say, hey, according to our roadmap, we're saying, QX of year Y, XP support will be deprecated and will not be supported. If you're still on XP, is there something we can do to help community members who are stuck on XP to get upgraded? What can we do to help them?
Yeah.
We accidentally nerfed XP a few updates ago, and I think that's been fixed at this point. I think it should be working again. That's not how we want to work. We want these things to be communicated with the community and planned out, and not just pull the rug out from under your feet.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that really needs to be made abundantly clear is that the decisions that are made are not made lightly, and they are certainly not made to exclude people, particularly, for instance, we're planning on an upgrade to Python 3.9. That is mostly just for to make the game work a little bit better. That is not because we are trying to boot out the wonderful folks that have created bots for the game. I mean, that's usually what they run on. Another one is we want to update to PhysX 4.1 because that's open source, which means hopefully that will lead to some native Mac and Linux clients. But of course, that might also upset some of the skydivers and the folks that have made marker missions on some of the invisible collision. We know that this stuff is going to happen, and we very much encourage, we've talked about this, we've encouraged these folks to come and visit Minkata Shard when we will give plenty of notice. And we encourage them to come to Minkata and test these things out so that they know what they're in for and they can raise some objections or any notes that they may have. So it really, the beauty part is they can all come and they can all visit the shard and they can all tell us what exactly is wrong with it. Yeah,
that's right. And if we can get some information about, okay, this change is going to break this specific thing. If we know about that in advance because they've come and they've tested and they've shown us, then maybe the developer community can find some solution to enable them to continue to do what they're doing and what they're enjoying. Maybe that involves tweaking the avatar height of the jump in the game or something so that they can still get to that marker, or adding a command or a workaround to the client that they can enable. If we can streamline these things, mainline them into the main client, we can try to be as accommodating as we can.
All right.
Adam, you were going to say something?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say both of those changes that Patrick mentioned are already in the Huru client, PhysX 4.1 and Python 3.9. And the changes were not made for an arbitrary reason because I'm evil and wanted to break it or anything like that.
Yeah.
I spent literally, I had the PhysX 4 thing working in June of last year, but I didn't even say on GitHub, okay, I'm ready for us to merge this until September, because I was trying to keep it as similar to the old as I could, but there were some major problems with the way the avatar was behaving with kickables. What could happen was you would, like the little rocks in Relto, if you ran over them with the my first pass at doing the PhysX, you would get stuck on top of the rock and the rock would start accelerating and you would stay on top of the rock, but the rock would be going that way. And so you would literally be staying still on top of the rock, flying out of the world. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like, no, we can't do that.
Short YouTube glitch videos of that to share, because that sounds hilarious.
See, I've been sharing a few in Discord, but I don't have a video of that, and the code is gone. So sorry, but maybe one day I'll share with you the bug jump.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Just following up a little bit on Martin too. We've had discussions several times about whether we have all the bases covered on how to communicate things to the community about upcoming changes and other significant events. And if people say, I never heard about this, let us know what would reach you to communicate what we're doing.
Yeah. No, because again, it's mostly just getting the word out to everybody. I mean, everybody is welcome to come to Minkata and, see if the major changes affect them, but it's just getting the word out to them that it's always a challenge. I mean, no matter how much you use social media or email or whatever, you're not going to reach everybody, unfortunately.
Yes.
So.
Well, we are within 5 minutes of panel ending time. So would each of you like to just say one final thing to the fans? Like I said, talk about a project, whatever you'd like. We'd like to hear just from each of you one more time.
Yeah, just to, I know you said it was a big question, but the descent is coming.
Yeah, because everyone was asking about that.
That's what everybody in chat has been asking about.
That's what I figured, but yes, it is coming. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it's coming.
You'll probably release it before I release any of my stuff. So,
oh, sure. Come on. Hey, your stuff's good. Seriously. It's worth the wait. Believe me.
Well, that's what I've been doing all my time. For me, I've got a couple of projects I'm now prepping, and then I will eventually bend Patrick's ear to give me a bit of a hand getting ready for the live server. So one of them is Phineas House, which is already on the Gen Shard. but that's the old atrocious version. I've now completely rebuilt it, retextured it with all the skills I've acquired over the last 10 years, and the new one's looking a lot better. So yeah, I just got to finish writing some in-game the journals for it, and then it's ready to kind of make its move. And the other one is Edurfasi, which was the age for the 25th anniversary of Myst. Some of you might remember I asked for submissions from people, what was your first interactions with Myst, which I was then going to put in a journal in the age. That one's getting prepped as well, so we've done a lot of work on that lately, to hopefully get that in. Yeah, that's about it.
I think I want to say, we have a panel here with a handful of people, but there's a much larger pool of contributors to this as well. All the people who are building ages, all the people who are opening bug reports for long-standing bugs in Uru that everyone's gotten used to, and somebody finally goes, we could fix this.
Please open the bug.
All the people who are in Discord and Minkata testing stuff, getting feedback. I know Patrick got a ton of feedback on his ages, and it was all to make them so much better. So yeah, thank you to all the people who are contributing. And there's so many ways to contribute. You don't have to write code. You can test things, you can build ages, you can help write documentation for things.
Story, concept art, anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music.
Music, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the good things about the people we've got coming in is everyone kind of chips in, just has a look over what you're doing, and kind of, yeah, this looks a bit odd. If you're aware of this, maybe you should, check this out. It might fix it, kind of thing.
It actually sounds from the earlier topic or earlier panels like you're describing kind of a cyan enlarge.
It's a bit like that in a way, yeah. I mean, yeah.
But no,
sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
I just want to reiterate, the fan enthusiasm has been absolutely fantastic, and I want to thank those guys. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, and when we release your new library, there hadn't been that many people in the cavern for a long time, and I was really so excited having to up the population on everything, saying, oh no, 100, no, 150, no, 200, no, 250, no, 300.
That was a great day, I gotta say.
That was, yeah, excitement I haven't seen in a long time.
That was fantastic, absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun.
I'd like to, give my appreciation to both the contributors and the testers. Both have been wonderful to work with, and a little bit of a special shout out to Martin, who stepped in, and I was just overwhelmed with all the stuff that was coming at me from different directions, and he has helped take a specific path of stuff that needed to be done. But we have dedicated testers that are just so tenacious, and I fear that we may end up burning some of them out. So that's another reason that I really would like to encourage others to help, so that we can spread the work along, because when new ages come out, and even with changes in ages to fix things that have been noticed, it takes a lot of work, a lot of time on everybody's part. So, it is a fan effort. All of us here are volunteers. We'd love to have more volunteers.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people not on this panel who have been involved in this effort. Age builders, client dev coders, and those testers, and everybody is playing a role.
Yeah,
but definitely.
Multiple roles.
Multiple roles in some cases, yes. And we're thankful for each and every one of them. All of you that have tested, thank you very much. We would not go forward without you guys.
If you're looking to get involved, or if you have questions that weren't answered on the panel, all of us hang out in the Open Uru Discord. And that's also where you'll get notifications when there's new stuff available to test on Minkata.
Right. And if you need a link to that Discord, or if you want to join the Guild of Writers IRC channel or any of that, start with the Cyan Discord. Pop into the Writers Pub channel if you want to talk to the writers. Pop into one of the Myst Online channels, and other people who are there will point you to the way. We'll PM you the links to the other Discords or the channels or wherever you want to go based on the skills you have and your interests.
And if you like what you see, don't forget to donate to the CavCon, mystonline.com/donate.
Good point.
That was-
Shameless plug.
That was actually another question I hadn't had a chance to get to, was how can people still support
Oh,
the cavern with financial donations, etc. So
yep, like I said, mystonline.com/donate. That's
All
where you
right.
go.
Yeah, and I think
Thank
there's
you
a
all for your
link
time.
in the- Okay.